As I record this, we are a little bit less from an hour away from Game 7 of the NBA Eastern Conference Finals. I'm sure by the time I finish this, it will be even closer. I mean, that's how time works in general. But we could be seeing NBA history be in the making tonight. I mean, I guess either way, I don't think a play-in team's ever made the NBA Finals, so I guess that is sort of history, but it pales in comparison to potentially seeing the first ever team come back in a playoff series after being down 3-0, climbing back all the way to win the series. My one question about this is, did it have to be the Boston Celtics? Like, usually when you think of a team that, the first team that's going to come back from a 3-0 deficit, it's going to be one of the underdogs that, all of the talking heads are going to be writing them off before the series even starts. It looks like they're all going to be proven correct. And then the underdogs catch the front runners, they're off guard and they get some momentum and they take down the big bad heels, and the little guy wins the day, and that's kind of what this Miami Heat team represents, which is kind of so strange to see the Boston Celtics playing the role of the team coming back down in this series. As unlikable as I do think the Boston Celtics are, not being a fan of any Boston team, most Boston teams get hate from the rest of whatever sport they're in because they're usually pretty darn good. But I will say that Derek White's buzzer beater at the end was pretty cool. When I first saw it happen, I honestly didn't even see the thing go in, so I thought the Heat were just going to move on. But Derek White managed to get that buzzer beater off at the very, very last tenth of a second, just as close as you could possibly get. What a play by him. And now, the conflict that I'm feeling is, it would be cool to see history being made and finally having that one in the win column for teams down 3-0 in a playoff series, but it would come at the expense of this miracle run that the Miami Heat are having in congruence with the Florida Panthers and what they're going on. So just a crazy run for a couple of Miami-based teams. I know the Panthers stadium is kind of out in the sticks a little bit, but I do feel like with the Celtics, it's a little bit like when the Syracuse would be like one of the final four teams into the NCAA tournament. They make a Sweet 16 run and they say, oh, how much of a Cinderella story this is. When you look at the number, they'd be an 11 seed. But then you would see like, hey, this is Syracuse. This is like Jim Boeheim and the dynasty. No, I hate Syracuse. They're not a Cinderella story. They don't count. They're a dynasty. And that's what I feel like is kind of happening with this Celtics series here. Although the ESPN analytics machine, when this series was 3-0 in favor of the Heat, they still had the Celtics as like a more than 50% chance of actually winning the series, and they got clowned on for that, and I think rightfully so, because I think if you have a machine that says that it is likely that a team is going to come back from a 3-0 deficit, there's probably something wrong with your formula. But it is kind of funny that they just so happen to possibly be correct here. And also something else going against Miami is that their record with the current officiating crew that will be on the court for Game 7 is hilariously bad. It's like 2-11 or something stupid like that, while the Celtics actually do have a pretty decent record when they're facing the referees at hand. So we could be seeing the Heat playing against the officials tonight as well. Although again, I don't want to make any games about the officials doing this or that. Usually it's kind of a lame excuse, but sometimes maybe the officiating is going to be just terribly bad in this game. Who knows? But that's kind of how I feel about it. And in conclusion, you have the Cinderella story of the Heat going up against potential history in the making for the Celtics. I know where I'm putting my fan bandwagoning in, where I've lived my whole life with this NBA record of not having any team come back from a 3-0 deficit, and I've hardly ever cared about it. It is, that's the sensible result. Of course, there's going to be it's going to be extremely unlikely to come back from a 3-0 deficit, and even if there is one, you don't see runs like the Heat are having every single year, where I do feel like if the Heat were to get knocked off now, it would be quite a while before we see another run quite like the one that Miami's on. So I am going to be pulling for the Miami Heat in this one, but my head kind of says, hey, the Celtics probably have a deeper roster. They have all the momentum. But, there is still that possibility that Jimmy Butler just decides to take over this game and refuses to let the Heat lose, like we've seen him do a couple times now throughout this playoff run. Thank you all for watching. If you made it this far into the video, I will see you at the next one.